In today's episode, you will understand what truly makes a home feel safe for any 2S LGBTQIA+ person. Hey, this is Steph, and welcome to the Together Moving Forward podcast. A podcast helping 2S LGBTQIA+ people embrace self-love and self-respect so you can celebrate yourself with pride. In this episode, you'll learn how supportive parenting directly impacts 2S LGBTQIA+ mental health, safety, and identity development, the most common mistakes parents make, and simple ways to shift towards connection and pride, how families can rebuild ongoing emotional safety during transitions, holidays, and moments of fear. Today's conversation is about learning how real support can transform 2S LGBTQIA+ identity into power, healing, and pride. Hello again, I'm Steph Vachon, and I am a human being. Welcome back to the Together Moving Forward podcast. Embrace your 2S LGBTQIA+ identity with pride through self-love. No matter where you stand in the 2S LGBTQIA+ spectrum, we are all connected. And if you ever struggle to fully love and respect yourself, you're not alone. And this podcast is here to help you. As someone who has navigated my own journey of self acceptance as a queer, I know the power of hearing voices that reflect our own experiences. In this podcast, you'll hear real stories and conversations that leave you with practical tools, fresh perspectives, and the confidence to embrace who you truly are with pride. To start, I need to say that I'm not a psychologist, a specialist, or someone with a college degree. I'm just a regular guy here to share with all of you and support each other. I won't tell anyone what to do or how to do things. Instead, I will share my journey and we will all share journeys together. We'll learn from each other how to move forward. Today, I'm so grateful to welcome parent coach Ingrid, a former teacher who helps family navigate the complexities of supporting their trans child and 2S LGBTQIA+ children with clarity and compassion. This episode shines a light on what true support looks like and why it matters more than ever. Ingrid, thank you so much for being here with us today, and welcome to the Together Moving Forward podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I told you earlier, I'm nerve-sighted, a little bit nervous, but very excited. And a big part of that stuff is that I have been listening to your podcast. I went back and listened to everything, and hearing your stories and hearing some of your guests telling their stories has just really brought home to me what the experiences are for many people in the LGBTQIA plus community, including the kids whose parents I work with. And it's not my experience. So it's so eye opening to see what happens for lots of people. So thank
Oh,
you. Thank you for
no,
having me, but thank you for putting all this content out there that matters so much.
well, thank you for telling me. It's
Mm,
really welcoming. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy to be here.
I am happy you're here. And I'm happy to be here too.
Good.
Okay. You're a former educator, a parent, and now a coach supporting families through complex emotional and identity challenges. What personal experiences led you to create the Way Forward coaching?
Great place to start. So I coach, my main niche or my audience are parents of trans kids. It kind of evolved over the past year, but that is the topic that's really close to my heart. And I'll tell you a little bit about why. First of all, as a teacher, about 5 years into my career, I became a mom. And I suddenly had a completely different view of the parents of my students. I know you're a dad, so you may identify with this, that when you have your own children, you realize that it's like your heart is walking around on the earth, separated from your body. And before that, I had thought I think I had been judging some of the parents of my students. Whereas
Mhm.
for the next 25 years of my career, I was very cognizant of how much these children mattered to their parents and how, when as teachers, we shared with parents what their kids were going through at school, struggles they were having. If we delivered that to parents in a way that shamed them, or we delivered it in a way that supported them, the impact was felt by their children. So, just a tiny example, a mom picks up her kindergarten kid and finds out that he is difficult, that he didn't listen, that he punched two people today. The mom immediately looks to her child and transfers to him all the shame that she feels standing out there in front of all the other parents hearing this
Mhm.
news. If that same parent here's what happened today, but I know he's trying. Here are the things that we're doing to support him. Here's what I can do to support you so that you can help him. That same mom looks down at her child with compassion. And that's what becomes this child's story. Because of that, when I retired 3.5 years ago, I started to miss working with the parents. I think it's what all the other teachers are like, thank God we're out of those conversations where I felt like I no longer have this audience, this ability to get in there with parents and show them
Mhm.
that shame and judgment and self-judgment do nothing to help their
No,
children.
no.
Nothing. Um, so when I decided to become a coach, I should actually say one more little piece. My daughter is trans and she came out 5 years ago. And my experience with it shocked me. It wasn't completely a shock in the news, wasn't a complete shock. I had had
Mhm.
some little hints, but I didn't know. And she was already 22. She had moved out recently. And she told me in the car, I was driving her home to her apartment. She told me in the car that she was starting hormone replacement therapy, which I understood immediately meant that she was telling me she was trans.
Mhm.
And I said all the right things, Steph. I know I thanked her for telling me. I told her how much I loved her. I told her how proud I was of her for figuring this out and taking steps. That, I was sorry that I hadn't been walking beside her, but that I was glad she was allowing me to be part of the story now. She cried, we hugged, she got out of the car, and then I drove a block away and bawled my eyes out. And it felt like that moment I had failed, like not with her, the crying, because I felt like, why am I not just so happy? Why do my values that tell me that I'm accepting of this, why are those not what's centered right now? Why am I sad? I don't even know what the right words are. But I went home. My son, my younger child, told me that he was completely on board with his sister and that he didn't understand why I was upset because
Mhm.
now I know more about my child. There's nothing lost, there's only gained. That
Mhm.
was the beginning of my shift. And over the next year, I learned and I grew and I started to understand that a lot of what I had been feeling was shame. Shame that my daughter had gotten to 22 without my knowing, without my supporting her directly. She had had to figure so much out by herself.
Mhm.
And it wasn't grief because we're more connected, not less connected. It was just this awful feeling of what kind of a parent am I that she was so alone in this. So when I started coaching, I had had a different sort of parent coach niche and I posted something about my family and it was to do with my daughter being trans and got, like typical what you'd expect, like 300 followers disappeared overnight, but like 800 followers came.
Yeah.
And so I asked my daughter, how do you feel if I post more? And she said, go for it. So I did. And something went viral. And suddenly I had like 3,000 followers instead of what I'd had, which was like maybe 500. And with her blessing that I could talk about our experience, but not her personal experience, just my experience as her mom,
Yeah.
I started to post more and my business just shifted to that niche and that audience, parents of trans kids who want to get on board, but who are similar to me, experiencing sadness, shame. I never use the word grief because that implies a death, and that is definitely not what's happening here.
Mm.
But surprise, shock, overwhelm, and in many cases, parents just are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. They just feel like the path in front of them that they saw has been erased and they don't know what they're supposed to do with that path to carve out a new one with their child.
But don't you think that's normal though to feel like that? I mean, to me, I hear you now and I'm like, That's totally normal. I think to be just surprised and to not know how to deal with that. I mean, you have to go through that emotion, no?
Yes, but that is not what the world
Oh,
tells
of course,
parents
of
of
course,
trans kids.
of course.
And of course there is the group that, like, I sort of characterize parents of trans kids as being in three communities. One is the awful situation where parents shut the door and their kid is out.
Yeah.
And these are the children that are, or not, I'm not talking about children like toddlers, I'm talking about offspring, because their gender is such that we can't say men and women yet necessarily, because it includes
Mhm.
non-binary people. So are the kids that end up on the street. They end up in shelters. Their suicide rate is really, really high, but their parents are convinced they already know the answer. And then we have the parents, and this can be true more for a sort of the millennial generation, I find, who are like, yes, this is great news. Let's have a party. Let's have a gender reveal of who you really turned out to be that we didn't know when you were born. And the bulk are in the middle, the people who are like, I want to be on board, but I don't know what to do. The
Yeah.
people you just said, isn't that obvious? And yet, all of those people find themselves on the outside of the door. Schools are told, don't, support kids in their transition, but you don't tell the parents because you're risking outing the kid. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Therapists, if I have friends in my community who went to their therapist appointments to ask for support to help their child, and because they asked for support, they were seen as not being on board enough already and
Yeah.
told they weren't welcome. They weren't welcome at the table because of the risk that they were going to undermine their child's
Yeah.
confidence in making this decision. And
Okay.
all of that makes sense. But at the end of the day, do you just leave them on the outside of the door? Do you just tell those parents you're not part of this conversation? You're not.
Mm. No, you can't.
No, you can't, because their support, this
Yeah.
isn't research driven. Their support is the number two, second only to gender affirming care. It is the second most important thing you can do to ensure that their kids have positive outcomes around mental health and suicide prevention, like self-harm prevention.
Of
It's a
course.
massive impact.
Of course. Um, I mean, what you say is it's taking me back in my youth because I think at the time in the 80s, being gay, I can't say that it is what the trans community is experiencing today because I don't know. I'm not trans and I don't have a child that is trans, but I hear similar things of like what I had to go through in my environment. And I now know because I'm a dad, you know, I now know that if I would have had a different support, if I would have had any support in my environment, my life would have been totally different. And I had to, most of my life, rewrite, redo, go to therapy, and break everything that I learned about myself and was taught because I didn't have any support. So going through alone like this, actually, my therapist used to, and he used to tell me that I was his miracle, that he didn't know why I was not in a either dead in the street or in a mental hospital because he said what I had to go through alone. I mean, I have now I realize how strong of a person I am now, but what you just said about the safety of having a safe space is the basic and it's gonna change. I don't know if there's any parents listening to right now, but it's gonna change everything for your kid because this is what I didn't have. And I had to work my whole life to get to where I am today. And being a dad now makes me realize even more that every little thing I give to my son, the safety, to listen to him, to hear what's going on. And when there's like a behavior or something, it's not because of the behavior. There's something going on, you know? All of this that I'm learning with my son, I wish I would have had just the
A drop of
1%.
it.
just a drop of it would have helped me so much even more. But what you're doing, what you're saying, and the work you're doing is incredible. And this is what we need even more today, because I know the impact it would have had on me if I would have had that. So thank you so much.
Oh, I so appreciate you saying that, Steph. And I can tell you that from time to time, I've gotten messages,
Mm,
particularly from older trans people who went through, just incredible things to get to be who they actually are. And they'll send me messages specifically saying, this is what I needed my parents to hear.
mhm.
And including some who say, this is what my parents are hearing now, finally. So
Wow.
I'm not talking about parents who are 30. I'm talking about parents who are 60, 70, 80 years old, and their kids may have been trans for 10, 15, 20 years, and they have sort of a fractious, tenuous relationship. But
Mm,
hearing some of the things I'm talking about allows them to start opening up the lines of communication again. And the parents are feeling like they're part of the story.
yeah.
And something that my daughter said to me when she first told me, I told her maybe a month later that I had signed up for a course that was going to teach me a lot of things about the trans community, but mainly like vocabulary and processes,
Yeah.
and just so that I would understand things. And from my point of view, it was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to ask my daughter to educate me. I'm supposed to go and get educated. But I think maybe at some level, I was looking for brownie points with her, like that she would say, "Good job, mom. I'm so glad you're doing the work." And she said, "Why are you taking a course? It's not about you. This isn't about you." And I was like, oh, goodness. She's telling me that this is not my story at all, but she's my child. And afterwards, I came to realize that every kid, it doesn't matter who they are, they're trans, they're gay, they're lesbian, it doesn't matter. They all think their story has nothing to do with you,
Mm,
because you're their parent. You're not the primary figure. You're not the main character in their story. You're always in the background, right? You're the guide, the support, but not the main character. And I think that sort of realizing that we have to parents have to kind of claim our own subplot.
mhm.
Does that make sense? We're not the main character. We're
Yeah.
not the story, but we have our own little side story, and we need to find people that can help us to tell that story in a way that allows us to step forward. So that's what these older people are telling me, that they are starting to rewrite that story with their parents. We're finally part of the story and not on the outside.
Wow. Yes, I totally get it. That's good. And why do you think your daughter waited that long to tell you? Why? Did she tell you, or?
I think that's a really, really complicated story. Part of it is that she was born in the 90s, and it's only in the last 5, 6 years, I think, maybe 7, 8 years total tops, that things have really opened up for families around the transgender identity.
Mhm.
Um, in the 90s and the 2000s, up to probably, I think it was only maybe in the maybe 2015, gender identity disorder was still in the DSM manual as a clinical diagnosis.
Yeah.
And then it switched to being gender dysphoria is the clinical diagnosis, and transitioning or gender affirming care is the treatment. The
Mhm.
treatment for gender identity disorder was the opposite. It was, instead of addressing the dysphoria by changing the situation, you addressed it by shutting it away. And so any kind of hint, we got very little hints when she was small. She wasn't a persistent, which is
Okay.
one of the criteria that you look for to know that a kid is trans quite early.
Mhm.
There were just small hints. And so all the advice that we got from our doctor, from a psychiatrist that we worked with, was to just ignore it. And my ex-husband, her dad, and I decided, me mainly, decided that while we weren't going to say, like, "Are you trans? Is that what's going on here?" We weren't going to ignore it either. We were going to just try to be as open as we could be.
Yeah.
We were going to include the stories of gay, trans, lesbian, etc. people in our world, so that she did not ever have to search for who she was. So she, some people tell the
Yeah.
story that they first hear the word trans when they're like 30 and they're like, oh, that's what I am. I didn't know that existed. We
Mhm.
wanted her to know that this was something real. But my instinct, Steph, like my gut told me the whole time that it was something.
Mhm.
But the world outside me told me, no, you're
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
And that you'll be robbing your child of a chance to have a regular life if you encourage this gut feeling that you have. I know it's so gross.
You don't you don't encourage, you just let them free. You let them be who they are right away instead of putting
Yes,
them in that container which I was put in. Yeah.
100%. And I
Yeah.
think things have devolved in some parts of the world, but have evolved in others.
Yeah.
So I'm in Toronto, you're in Montreal. I
Yeah.
think in both our cities, there is far more acceptance.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, I've taught trans kindergarten kids.
Mhm.
So they're kids that are exploring but their parents are open and supportive to whatever that looks like. And I have heard about teachers whose students come in. I have a student a friend has a student who's non-binary. And in the morning, that kid lets her know what pronoun they want for that day. So I think the child is probably gender fluid.
Yeah.
It's too early when you're 4 or 5 years old to really put a label, but that kid comes in and will be like, "I think I'm more of a girl today. I'm more of a boy today." And I know there are parents that would be like, "Oh my goodness," but there are lots of parents that are like, "Okay, that's fine. You'll figure out who you are. Everything is
Of
available to
course.
you."
I mean, why not? The kid is like 4 or 5 years old. I think it's amazing what you just say. I mean, it's so cool just to hear that instead of, if and that there are parents that are like, "Okay, yes." I mean, what is that gonna do? I think it's so much of the people are tell me if I'm wrong, but people are so scared of the outside world, so they're scared of the shame they're gonna get from the outside world, so then they want to shut everything down, shut
Definitely.
everything off. Yeah, yeah,
Fear is for sure. Shame is probably the strongest feeling parents who come to me are
yeah.
experiencing. And I know with the work that you do, shame is a huge part of anything that is experienced by people who are taught that they're other.
Yeah.
And as soon as a parent is in this position, they're afraid that that's what's happening, that their child is going to be othered, and they go into shame that they've caused this somehow and
Mhm.
that they don't know how to help their kid. But the other feeling, and this is the one that parents identify, is fear. Always fear is the
Yeah.
first one. And it's huge. It's fear of what other people will think. It's fear, legitimate fear of the politics going on in the world, particularly right now in the US, mainly because they're our neighbors and because it's such an about face from where we were 10, 12 years ago.
Mhm.
So, we were having a movement in one direction and we're turning around and going backwards. So there's that fear. There's fear of like the man on the street, which is not illegitimate. There is danger there.
Yeah.
So I get it why they're scared. But the amazing thing at the end of the day is where is their child in most danger? Is it
Mm.
at school? Is it on the street? Is it politically? No, it's at home.
Yeah.
It's at home. If you have support at home and the rest is shit,
Yeah.
at least you have a place where you're safe and people who love you. And the blanket that puts around you when you walk out into the world matters.
Ah,
When you're at home telling your child, "Oh, the world is terrible, hide who you are, don't behave this way because somebody might try to attack you or kill you, or you're not going to get a job, or you'll never fall in love." What does the kid walk out into? The exact same world. Nothing changed,
yeah.
except that kid is naked. They don't have the blanket. They don't have the confidence. They're walking out in the world terrified. They're they're not their authentic self, so their spine's not straight. And who is the most likely person to be harmed? Someone that's walking out in the world looking like this, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm right. It
And,
just cycles.
you don't the only control you have is in your home. So you have no
Exactly.
control about the rest of the world, so why not have the control in your home about making it a love space and a safe space for your kid? Yeah, I mean, you could not say it better. That's the basic thing of
100%.
being a parent. it is challenging. It might be challenging, and it is challenging in so many ways in other situations too. But that's our job. That's our job to make sure that our kids are safe at home, at least, because, like you said, the rest of the world is right now so crazy in so many ways. So at least when I know when my kid comes back home, he is safe. Just an example, we'll go on vacation, and after 2 or 3 days, he's like, I want to go back home. And I'm like, why do you want to go back home? Because I want to go in my bedroom. I like my things in my home. I like my bedroom. So for him, experiencing the rest of the world, I know that when he comes back home, and he's always going to have a safe, loving space at home. And to me, that's like, it means everything, you know? So thank you for saying that.
No,
we
I hear
need,
it.
we need
I
that.
I hear it, Steph. When I've heard you talk in other episodes about your relationship with your son, and I hear it every time that you get it. And obviously, when we parent our own children, to some extent, we're parenting the little version of us, right? What we
Oh,
didn't get.
oh,
And your son is so lucky to have a father who remembers and understands that peace rather than going to the world outside and looking for all the dangers. There's a wolf in the forest and there's, a shark in the ocean. We don't bring that into our home. We bring our home out when we go out into the world. We bring what we learned at home with us. And the experiences you describe, the bullying you experienced as a young person, it's impossible to know what that path might have looked like if you had more support and buffering from home, but I'm guessing it would have been shrunk so much to be able to go to a place and know that you were loved and safe.
oh, yeah, because I mean, I think of all so many choices, stupid choices that I made in my life because of what I thought of myself. I mean, I hated myself. So, and I was so ashamed of who I was. So all the choices that I made were to try to fit in other people's expectations and other people, the way they view me, like, oh my, okay, I'm with this person, how should I act, who should I be, what should I say, how should I stand, how it was constantly like that. So I was never myself until just, I don't even think I'm completely myself still today. Like, I'm still learning, I'm still healing, and from all of that. So yes, that's all I can say. Like, it's so for sure though, and I think this is a really good quality I have, and I used to do the same thing in figure skating, is I look around and I'm like, I look at other people's behavior, and then I go, no, I'm not gonna be like that. No, I'm not gonna say that to my kid. I'm not gonna act like this. So I think it's
Mm,
for every human being, and not just a parent. I mean, even if in our community, we should be able to look at things and be like, okay, I don't, I don't want to be treated like that. I don't want to be that person. So what am I going to do to turn things around? But it's so hard for us as a human being to acknowledge that we're not doing something that is right. And how can I change that to make the rest of the world or my home better, you know?
right.
But yeah, this I can tell myself, and I can look in the mirror and say that I'm trying my best. I'm not perfect. There's days that I make mistake, and but I will apologize, and I will back up for a while and say, okay, how was my behavior? And I once said I didn't want to do that, and I just did it, So how I have to change that and correct that. So
Well, repair is the
yeah.
is the secret sauce of relationships. It's actually, again, it's research backed that
Mm.
relationships that occasionally have rips and need repair actually are stronger than the ones that never have struggles at all. So
Mhm.
when I have a problem with one of my kids, I try to tell myself, look, you're giving yourself and your child the opportunity for a repair. I
Mhm.
can go in and fix this by acknowledging my behavior, telling my kid what I wish I had done differently, and moving on from there. And now my relationship is stronger than if I had been perfect, which is not an option anyway, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
You work closely with parents of LGBTQ plus youth. What are some of the most common fears or misconceptions you hear from parents when a child first come out? And how do you help them move from fear into clarity and support?
Yeah, that's a great question. We touched on some of it a little bit, but the main things, the first one that comes up is always my kid's going to be unhappy. They're going to have this unfulfilled life, and all the potential I saw for them is gone. Another one really common that I definitely had is now they'll never find love and they'll never have a family. And on a selfish level, the thing that moms often think is like, I won't have grandchildren, somehow that this is a guarantee now. And then the last one, which interestingly doesn't ever come up at the beginning, but is often the actual undercurrent of everything. And it's very tied to that shame piece, is that they will mess up and they won't have their kid anymore, that they won't be connected. And I understand that one because through my child's growing up years where I had this sneaking suspicion that we were going in this direction, I used to have this fantasy. She at one point she was interested in becoming a screenplay writer, and she is a writer, but not for movies. But I had this fantasy that she would get an Academy Award, and I would watch on TV and she would go up to the microphone and do her thank yous. And I knew that one version of the story, she would go to the microphone and say, "Thank you, mom, for all the support you showed me all my life." And the other version is that she would come up to the microphone and say, "F you. You are everything I had to fight against." And I wanted to choose all through my life, whatever it was that would take us towards that
Mm.
staying connected path. So I know that a lot of my clients, once we start working together, that's what emerges. That even if we can put all the other fears to bed, that one is still there for them. And then how do I help them move beyond it? Well, the part about them being unhappy and having unfulfilled lives and not finding love and not having a family, it's not that hard to put that to bed because I send them to read stories of trans people's lives. There is a ton of great literature in the memoir section
Mhm.
now written by trans kids who have grown up and by parents of trans kids who are telling their story. And these are stories of people who have successful careers, who, are married with 3 kids, who live their truth. They're not necessarily people who are living in the world and not acknowledging that they're trans. They may be very openly trans. An example I read recently, a story of a family where one of the dads, who was a trans man, became pregnant and had a baby, and the family expanded with this one child that was their biological child. And that experience alone showed me all, and yet another permutation of what family could look like for a trans
Yep.
person.
Mm.
My own child is in a happy, healthy relationship. I've met I've met parents of trans kids who have everything from really challenging lives, because it's not like because you're trans, you suddenly get a golden ticket either. Some
Mhm.
parents think as soon as their kids figure this out, the depression goes away, the anxiety goes away, all problems are gone. No, your kid's still a human being.
Yeah.
They still might have problems, but I have met people whose kids are on every walk of life, every level of profession, every level of success. They're just people.
Yeah.
And the main difference is that they're themselves. They're not
Mhm.
walking around in black and white. They're in Technicolor now. They're being who they actually are. And that is a prerequisite for any of the other things to happen. What's the point of falling in love and having kids if it's not really you that's in that relationship,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
The mess up and lose their kid part is harder. It's harder work. But once a parent acknowledges it, then it's pretty addressable,
Yes.
because really what lies there is if you want to be connected to your kid, you need to support them. What does
Mhm.
that support look like? It means being their parent. So continuing to have boundaries and rules and expectations of them as your child, but also leaning into the love and the support and the guidance that they so desperately need from you, and and not forgetting all the things that made you connected before this was on the table. I think a
Yeah.
lot of parents stop seeing their kid as a whole person and they're just this one part of their identity.
Hmm.
So your kid's trans, but they still are a writer or a cook, or they still like going to the theater with you, or they want to cuddle and watch Stranger Things. Like these are normal things. If
Yeah.
you're constantly coming at your kid with, like, how are the hormones managed? How are you managing them right now? Are you going to have top surgery? Are you dating boys or girls? Who do you like? What's your label? What does non-binary mean? Educate me. Educate me. Aren't you afraid? If this is the dialogue, no wonder your kid's shutting the door and going in their room.
Yeah.
So it's bringing them back to that, to the simple. And sometimes it's as simple as saying, put a lot of this stuff on the shelf for a little while. Do what your kid has asked you, use their name and their pronouns as well as you can, apologize when you don't, and lean into the simple stuff that you used to love about your relationship with your kid. Call them just because you like them, not because you're going to ask them 10 questions.
Hmm. It's funny, the first two elements that you said, this is what I was told by so many people.
Oh, I bet.
Oh yeah, yeah, I had people telling me that they were feeling bad for me because I was never gonna be happy. The outside world was gonna, be mean, and then I would not have a family. Well, look at me today.
Look at you too.
There you
100%.
there you go.
And would that have been possible for you if you had traveled the path they were asking you to travel?
Mm, no.
No. It's
Mm,
for anybody. I mean, I'm a heterosexual woman. I wasn't going to have a happy marriage if I walked around in the world looking for someone who I wasn't going to show my true self to.
yeah,
That's ridiculous. A marriage isn't a performance. I'm not in
yeah,
a TV show. It's the real thing.
yeah,
So for my kid to find that, she had to be herself.
yeah.
It wasn't possible before.
Hmm. Your coaching focuses on emotional grounding, connection, and communication. What are one or two practical tools you teach parents that really help create a calmer, more supportive home environment?
So I'm going to reiterate a little bit from the last question because it's just so important. Is focus on the connection that you have, not on being perfect. That's huge. So
Yeah.
leaning into all those things that you love about your kid and knowing that there isn't a parent on the world when asked, why do you think your kid is so great, who says, oh, because he's a boy. That just isn't something people say, or
Mm,
because he's short. That those aren't the words that parents use. We love our kids because they're funny, or they're compassionate, or they're excited about things, or they're joyful, or they're dramatic. Whatever it
mm,
is about them that we think is special, lean into those things. Don't look for perfection in them or in yourself or in the way that you're going to relate to each other. You said this, and I think it's so important. Focus on the parts you can control. So, one
yeah.
of the first things I would do with a parent when I'm working with them in a session is start looking at, do you have any control of that? So, an example of that might be I've had more than one client who talk about school and that their child is really struggling during a period of time to go to school, even because of the difficulties they're having there. And once your child reaches like 15, 16, you're not going to be picking them up, carrying them into the building. If you even were able to, they're going to be able to leave the minute you turn your back. So focusing on how to get them into the building is not going to help you. Focusing on how to make them feel comfortable and safe, helping them navigate a system that might allow them to have alternative paths to education, those are in your control. You have that ability.
Mhm.
Helping parents figure that out. I think the other one is, and this is going to sound obvious, like I'm pitching myself, and it's not necessarily me, but finding support.
Yeah.
So instead of simply wishing for a calmer, safer home environment, instead of, like you mentioned, looking at other people and thinking, okay, I know what I don't want to do. So a lot of parents will come to me and say, I know what I don't want to do, but I don't know what I do want to do because I
Mhm.
have role models. There's no book that says, here's what to do when this happens. They're coming, but there are not enough of them out there yet. So getting support from the trans community, the parents of trans kids, courses, there's classes out there that you can take, and a lot of them are online. So if you're in a community that doesn't have one, you can often find one in another city. Toronto, for example, has Families in Transition, which is a 10-week course that is just amazing. And then working with a therapist, a coach, anyone who
Mm.
can personalize, because that's the difference between a community and working one-on-one, is a coach can hear all the pieces that are and yours alone.
Yeah.
So what are your kids' particular triggers? What are their areas of celebration? What are you struggling with because it reminds you of things from your own childhood? What things speak to you and can you resonate with really easily? So getting one-on-one support helps, and not burdening your kid. Your kid has been already doing all the work to get themselves here. They think their journey is over when they open their mouth and tell. Then they're
Mhm.
like, well, now I'm done. I'm ready. I'm going. You cannot drag their heels backwards because you weren't ready.
Yeah.
You need to celebrate with them. And then in the background, with your support system, do the work to catch up. So those are my main strategies at the beginning, my main tools.
And I can relate the thing of when you come out. I mean, I remember the summer I came out was so wonderful for the first few months, and then, of course, all the baggage that you're carrying comes back slowly, and you have to deal with it. But at least when you come out, yeah, I think it's so important to celebrate it because it's like such a big victory and such a relief inside
So much
that
so.
it's so important to celebrate it. Yeah, have a party, celebrate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet I hear stories, and kudos to the parents who understand that they've done this and need to fix it because it's fixable. But I hear of parents who will say to their child, you have to let me grieve first. I have to grieve the child that I've lost." And
Mm,
I say to those parents every time, I get it. I get that you need to do that, but you don't tell that to your kid. And if you've
no.
already said it, then fix it.
Yeah.
Go to your kid and say, that was a huge mistake. I should never have said that, because you're not gone. You're standing right here, and you have uncovered a part of yourself that you were protecting from me, and I said the wrong thing. Please give me another chance. Please let me regain your trust. And then go to your grieving in your room.
Yeah.
I'm divorced. I grieved my marriage when it ended, but I didn't do it with my toddlers and or my young children around me. I did it in private. I didn't need them to, hold me up because my marriage was finished. So why would I do it now? They deserve to be protected and their peace and their joy acknowledged and celebrated. And as an adult, a parent, no matter how old your child is, they may be a young adult too, you take the time and get the support that you need to do it on your own.
And I understand the parent that would say grieve, even if I know it's really hard to understand, but just what I would say, my point of view would be like, um, you didn't lose me, you're winning me finally, you know?
Yes. Oh, I
I'm
love that.
like, yeah, I'm finally being who I am, which is like so incredible. But I can understand the other part too. Like I really try when when I'm in the situation, try to go in someone else's shoes too and see, okay. And I can understand the parents that is like that want to say that, but like you said, I think it's so important to uh, do your little fit, like go hide somewhere and try to celebrate this because it's so important when we come out. It's such an important moment, so it needs to be celebrated.
100%. And Steph, my daughter, I don't want to tell too much of her story, but when she told me and I said, I love you, I accept this, I'm on your side, I'm proud of you, thank you for telling me, burst into tears.
Of
And
course,
I said, did you think that I wasn't going to? Were you afraid? And she said, no, I knew you were going to, but I still was afraid. I
of
still,
course, of
it's
course.
just,
Because we feel alone. We feel we're doing this alone. You're alone until you tell someone. You're totally alone, you
yeah,
know. And so when you share this part of yourself, it's like you're what's the word vulnerable?
vulnerable.
Well, that's a hard word for me.
Vul is the beginning, VUL, vulnerable. It is a hard word.
Vulnerable. There you
I
go. Yeah,
love,
it is the really
love
hard.
both.
And yeah, it's like you're splitting your heart and your body in two. You're just like opening it to the world, and it's really exciting. But yes, at the same time, you don't know what the environment and people that are around you, how are they going to react. And even if you think you do, you never know. And that's the scary part. So to welcome it, and like you did, is the most wonderful thing you could have done to your daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe me, I wasn't perfect because in the weeks that followed, I did quite often say I'm a little worried about this or I'm nervous about that. And so I, like all parents, had to do repair. I
Yeah.
had to work through a lot of those things. And afterwards, I understood more of
Yes.
how those things impacted her and how they held her feet to the earth when she wanted to float.
Yeah.
And it's part of why I do the work I do, because rather than it taking someone a year, why would you wait a year? The analogy I've used recently is it's like putting your child in the middle of the road where there's traffic and being like, I'll get to you in 6 months. It'll take me 6 months, but I'll take you out of the road in 6 months. You're subjecting to all this risk. Why not get them out of the road today by getting help right now? So if I had done it sooner, if I had gotten more help sooner, I think I could have saved her a few months of the risk of being in the road. And her mental health was affected, not only by me, by lots of things, but
Mhm.
I wasn't helping her get positive outcomes at the beginning as much as I was as I learned. So I try to help parents get there sooner.
Yeah, but I think you already did so much. So you can be proud of yourself
Thank
and what
you.
you did. It's already like so much more than many people would not get. So it's
Well, thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you. And I did have help. So, and my daughter is amazing. So I was lucky with that as well.
Supporting a child, especially an LGBTQ plus child, isn't a one-time conversation, but an ongoing journey. How do you help families continue to grow, adapt, and maintain strong, loving relationships over time?
Yeah, I think one way is to participate in the process as much as your child will let you. And that both parts of that are important. So if your child is a young adult, which is often the case with trans kids, we're talking often about sort of late teens, early 20s is the most common group I am in contact with. They often are looking at gender affirming care like hormone replacement therapy, sometimes some surgeries, and they really want you to be part of it. So if they will allow that, then be part of it as much as you possibly can. Get the support that you need to be really educated and know what you're doing, and then walk the path with them. Sometimes they're willing to let you be part of it as a witness, like the person that's going to take the notes, as long as you close your mouth and don't participate. And that too, swallow your parental, I need to control everything and be there in
Mhm.
the capacity that they have asked you to be. So that's one. Another one is, and this is probably a hard one, try to be aware of what's going on in the world that is impacting your kid. So this is very true we're talking about parents of young adults. They hear and they watch what's happening in the news, what's happening to their rights in
Mhm.
whatever part of the world they're living in. When you show them that you don't know anything about it, that you're not aware of what's going on, it's like a knife to the heart
Yeah.
because it makes them think you don't care,
Mhm.
that you don't understand how important this is. At the same time, you don't want to go into complete overwhelm. So, doing what you need to do to sort of be aware of what's happening where you live, sometimes the bigger picture in a balanced way, so that when your kid brings things to you that they're afraid of, that they're worrying about, you're not completely ignorant. And then don't engage in significant debates with them about it.
Mhm.
So a lot of parents will be like, but I want to show them the other side. No, this is not a time for discussion. It's a time to say, oh, that must be really hard for you to be navigating that. Or it must be scary to see this threat on the
Mhm.
horizon.
Yeah.
It can go further, of course. Activism, speaking up, going to marches, using your vote, all important. But what our kids mostly want is to know that we're on board enough to care what's going on. And then the last thing, or not, I guess, or another important thing is to keep evolving, keep learning, keep addressing your own biases. Notice the mistakes that you make, whether your kid's there or not. It
Mhm.
isn't just about that. I noticed the other day that a friend of mine told me his wife was pregnant. And what do you think my question was? Is it a boy or a
Yeah,
girl?
boy or girl.
And on my drive home, I thought, why, even after all this time, is that on my mind? Who cares? Why wasn't my second question, is the baby healthy? Why did I even need a second question? I could have just been listening to him talk about how he was feeling. So noticing those things about yourself, not freaking out. Of course, I know why I asked this. I've been raised in my world,
Exactly. I was
but
gonna say.
starting to dismantle it,
Yeah.
starting to notice it, those are important shifts as well. Um, and then I think the other piece, and again, I'm coming back to something I've touched on, which is staying in the connection that is not about your kid being trans. So I try to remember my kid is not only their gender identity.
Mhm.
There are times when that's front and center. If your kid is considering a surgery, it's going to be front and center.
Mm.
They've just experienced some kind of harassment, it's going to be front and center. But the rest of the time, remember that it's not the only thing that matters. Ask them about all the other things going on in their life, their relationships, their hobbies, their job, their health, and so
Yeah.
on.
The holiday season can be incredibly difficult for many in the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, whether because of family dynamics, loneliness, or pressure to hide who they are. What guidance or practical advice would you offer to help queer people navigate the holidays with more peace, self love, and emotional safety?
Oh, I I have friends in the community who talk to me about some of their experiences around the holidays, and it's very painful to hear, so I can't even imagine how painful it is to experience some of the things you just said. I think it would be presumptuous of me to give much advice because I haven't had that experience, but at the same time, I think what I would say is try to notice where your support lies. Be aware of where you can get support and then tell those people what you need. If your mom is your support person, don't ask her to guess because she might get it wrong. And that's a
Mm.
huge risk. If she wants to be supportive, tell her, I need you to, if I go to my room in the middle of the party, I need you to let me. Or if I disappear, I need you to come find me because I might need you to hold me while I'm crying. If grandma says something stupid, I need you to speak up. Or if grandma says something stupid, I need you not to speak up. See
Mhm.
how like a lot of the behaviors that are required of your parents are opposite, and
Yeah.
the parent doesn't know which one to choose. Tell them.
Mhm.
Tell them to ask, be the one that invites them to ask you questions if that's necessary. All those things can help for the parent that's walking in the dark and wants to be the most loving that they can be. Another one I suggest to some of my clients, I actually have clients who I work with specifically on getting towards the holidays with their trans kid coming home for the first time
Yeah.
since coming out, for example. Some of the things I suggest is having a conversation about expectations. And you don't make it, what do you expect, trans child? It's everybody. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And everybody in the family having a chance to say something that they're hoping will happen over the holidays, not about that kid, but about the holidays in general. Like, I really want a family games night. I really want a low key Christmas. I really want to only have people here who are aware of my transition,
Mm.
and then figure out as a family how you're going to be able to do those things. And then this is to parents, not to trans people. You brought this kid onto the planet. You say you love them more than anything else. You need to walk that talk when it comes to family events. You cannot invite Aunt Bertha if she is a transphobe. She just cannot be there. And if that pisses Aunt Bertha off or hurts her feelings, well, you chose your child's well being over her discomfort. For her, it's one afternoon. For
Yeah.
your kid, it's a message about acceptance and love and the knowledge that they are your priority.
Yeah.
So this is like, it's kind of non-negotiable. And I am not a person that promotes family alienation. I don't say, your Aunt Bertha was rude that one time, so we cut her out right away. But I think the Christmas dinner table isn't the place for the education. So
No.
if I can't get Aunt Bertha on side before, then she cannot be at the event. And if I feel like it's rude to not include her unless I make it a different kind of event, then a different kind of event is what it'll be. I'll tell my family this year we're having just a low key Christmas for four,
Mhm.
or we're going to celebrate Hanukkah in a buffet restaurant, knowing that Aunt Bertha's sitting at that end and my child's at that end. Whatever it takes, you protect your child's peace over other people's comfort every single time. And then I'm just going to say one more step, and it's connected to you. You talked about that you at one point started going on vacation
Yeah.
to get away.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that like a loop in my head, because I think some people might do that and then feel bad about missing things. And
Mm.
I want to say to people, whether it's parents or members of the community themselves, if you create a new tradition, don't don't resist it and make it give yourself suffering that you don't need. Don't give
Mhm.
yourself extra by saying, I did this because I lost that. Just say, I did this. Like, look at me. I have the nerve to get on a plane and create a new life for myself, a new tradition, a new way of having this holiday. If that looks like, doing the conga line on the beach for one person, for another, it's going with their immediate family to a cabin, and somebody else, it's being all alone, lying in bed, crying. Even that, if that's
Mhm.
what you need this time, please give it to yourself and don't judge yourself for needing that.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been piggybacking on you because I just think that's so incredible that you knew to do that for yourself.
Yes, and then, one Christmas, I was feeling guilty, so I went back just once. But, yeah, it was, yeah, you have like you said, you have to create your own traditions, your own holidays without feeling guilty. That's the hard part, but after a while, I mean, you have to start slowly with little things, even with little things, and, it just feels incredible later. And, you realize that, yeah, the holidays are not movies, they're not the commercials, they're not, anything we see on TV and on the medias, it's what you make it out, you know?
100%. And letting go of those expectations.
Yeah,
What a relief. What
yeah,
a relief. It
yeah.
makes everything possible.
It
All
takes
the things that you wanted are actually possible because
yeah,
they're not about the external. They're about internal, right? The words we use for Christmas, peace and joy and love, those are internal. Well, you can
yeah,
have those things on a beach. You can have them with Aunt Bertha if she's on board.
yeah,
But you have to create the external environment in which those internal feelings become possible. And even if that's being alone, that's
yeah,
okay.
and it might be hard when you start, but you have to start slowly and give yourself some time, and it is absolutely fabulous later on, so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's not the end of your story. There's
Oh,
more.
no. Yes, exactly. Ingrid, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was incredible. I knew this was gonna be amazing, and it was incredible. Thank you so much for the work you're doing, and, if you're ever want another son, you could be my mom.
Oh, I'll sign up.
You could be my adoptive mom, but I'm kidding, but,
No, I can be your Instagram mom.
okay, let's
No
do that.
problem.
Let's do that. Um, I think it's not that I think, the work you're doing is incredible, especially during these days, and it warms my heart to hear what you're doing and to know that there's kids in this life that are being coached by someone like you, well, their parents are being coached by someone like you, and, it gives me a lot of hope. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Steph. Thanks for all the work you do in the world. Good. Well, thank you
Okay.
very much for having me and for doing this work.
Um,
And I'll look forward to hearing not just this episode, but the future ones.
oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for this amazing conversation and the wonderful work you do for our community. No matter where you are in your journey, whether you're queer yourself, supporting a 2S LGBTQIA+ loved one, or still healing from the past, this conversation is a reminder that safety, pride, and identity begin at home. When we choose compassion over fear, connection over silence, and curiosity over shame, we create the kind of world every 2S LGBTQIA+ person deserves to grow in. Real support isn't about perfection. It's about presence, repair, and showing up with love, even when it feels uncomfortable. May this episode inspire you to build those safe spaces, rewrite the stories that once held you back, and stand rooted in the power of who you are and who you're becoming. I'm always looking for inspiring guests for the podcast, and I would love to have you or someone you know share your journey with pride. The world needs your story, and it has the power to change lives. Your voice really matters. Please reach out and send me an email today. It is already time to say au revoir, but just for now. So please join me every Monday and Thursday for brand new episodes of the Together Moving Forward podcast and learn how to embrace your 2S LGBTQIA+ identity with confidence and pride. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode on how to love and respect yourself. And if you found this episode useful, please share it with a friend or someone you know in our 2S LGBTQIA+ community so you can help them embrace self-love. It might seem like a small gesture, but it truly makes a huge difference. Wherever you are from in the world, we are all connected. Remember, solidarity beats hate. The more we unite, the stronger we become. Because at the end of the day, we are all equally human and we all deserve the same rights. One last thing before I go, put your hand on your heart and repeat after me, you and me together. My journey is unique and I embrace it fully. Yes, my journey is unique and I embrace it fully. From shame, guilt, silence, and rejection to pride, freedom, healing, and love. Together, we are moving forward. Thank you for being here with me today, sharing this space, this growth, and this love with you as a gift. I truly appreciate you. See you real soon. Ciao. Subscribe now and share to uplift, empower, and make a real difference in our community.